4 years after the Ricoh GR3 was released, I still think the Ricoh GR3 is the best street photography camera. Alright, so obviously today we are going to be talking about the ever so famous Ricoh GR3, this pocketable, ninja-like camera for street photography. This is, in my opinion, again, the best street photography camera, not only for the money, but also for the feature set. There are cameras out there like the X100V, you got the Fuji X-T5, you even have the X Pro 3, the X Pro 2, I mean, there are just a ton of different options out there. But when it comes to feature set, what you need for good street photography, the GR3 has it all, and I think it beats all of the other cameras out of the water. Also, if you are new to this channel, you guys, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below and dropping a like. And if you want to see more photos from the Ricoh GR3, follow me over on Instagram here at King Japes. So before we talk about why I think this is the best camera for street photography, let's first talk about how much it costs. The Ricoh GR3 new, I think, retails for $899 USD. But online you can find them anywhere between $700 to $900. Now there are a couple of different iterations of the GR3. There's the regular Ricoh GR3, which I have in front of me, and this one has the 28mm lens on it. You also have the Ricoh GR3X, which I believe has the 40mm lens, but in my opinion, the original GR3 with the 28mm lens is the best of the bunch. So the first reason why I think it is the best camera for street photography is because of the small compact size. Now the GR3, even though it is a pocket camera, it's a little bit bigger than, you know, something like a Digicam. As you guys can see, here is the size of my hand. It is still smaller than my entire hand here. This will slip into anybody's jacket pocket. It'll slip into a bag. As a matter of fact, I typically don't even shoot this with a strap. I'll take this little sling camera crossbody bag and I drop this in there with a couple of batteries and I'm pretty much set for the day. When it comes to traveling through airports, taking it on vacation, and really just traveling light, nothing beats the GR3. It's a pocket camera for a reason, and it has so many different features packed into such a small body. Now, of course, there are other cameras out there in this category like the Fuji X100V, but one thing that I don't really like on the X100V is the built-in 35mm focal length. And for most people, 35mm is great, but when it comes to street photography, for me, I think the ideal focal length, folks, for capturing not only candid moments but also setting up compositions is a 28mm, and that is the lens that is here on the GR3. So this camera features a sharp 28mm 2.8 lens. Not to mention, folks, it has 24 megapixels, so in terms of image quality, it is not lacking whatsoever. You're going to be able to print small and big, and this is going to handle any situation that you might put it in. Even at 1600 ISO, it is really, really good, and so you don't really get a ton of noise until you get up towards like ISO 3200. So in terms of focal length, this is why I prefer the GR3. The 28mm lens is a little bit more wide than the 35 on something like the X100V, and even though the GR3 lacks that kind of viewfinder that the X100V sports, you can always get an external one like the one I have up here if you do want to look into a viewfinder and compose. Otherwise, using that back screen is insanely good as well. Really, really great for, you know, putting the camera into small spaces. Now, number 3 is where I feel like the GR3 excels past all of the other cameras because it's something very unique to the GR system. And folks, that is snap focus. Now, if you've never heard of what snap focus is, basically it's a setting in the camera that you can turn on where if you full press your shutter, it will automatically focus to a predetermined range of focus. You know, typically I have this set to like 1.5 meters, which is about 5 feet away. And on a 28mm lens, if you're shooting at like 5.6 or f8, that is going to give you a really, really good range to capture candid photographs. Now, this is a good technique if you are used to, you know, shooting with a Leica, or you're like zone focusing on any type of SLR or rangefinder system. Same kind of concept, except that you can have autofocus on, you know, and you can half press it and focus on anything you want. And that is game changing for street photography. Next up, we have highlight weighted metering. Now, highlight weighted metering is essentially just a metering mode that you can set your camera to where it will only meter for the highlights. And this can give you a very specific look that a lot of street photographers go for, where your highlights will be in focus and your shadows will be completely dark. Now, this works really well if you're doing something like high contrast black and white, where you can pretty much utilize the light and shadow for compositions. And if you're maybe even shooting in the positive color preset, or the positive film preset, it gives you almost a slide film look that you would see from films like Kodachrome back when photographers shot with that. The possibilities that you get with the highlight weighted metering mode are endless, and it really combines well with that snap focus and just creating some of the most insane looking street cameras. The next feature, you guys, is IBIS. Now IBIS, also known as in-body image stabilization, is built into the Ricoh GR3. Now I don't know if you guys could hear that. Now that is the IBIS in the camera, and folks, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're shooting at night and you need to handhold your camera, and let's say you're at a shutter speed of like 1/8 of a second, 1/15 of a second, that in-body image stabilization is going to stabilize your hand movement. So even if you shake a little bit, even at a very slow shutter speed, you won't get any motion blur. You can really sit here and take stills like it's on a tripod. And the last reason why I think the GR3 is the best street photography camera is just the overall aesthetics. In street photography, as you kind of make your way through crowds and you're trying to make photographs candid, a lot of the times you don't want a camera that feels out of place. And having a camera that doesn't have a viewfinder and you kind of just hold out in front of you like this, it can almost make you seem like a tourist, and it's more inviting to see someone with a smaller camera like the GR3 opposed to someone shooting maybe like a DSLR or even something much bigger than that, or even like a rangefinder sometimes, mainly because it looks like a more serious camera. Now even though the GR3 is small like this and doesn't really look too serious, it is a very serious camera. The 24 megapixels, IBIS, snap focus, highlight weighted metering, all of the shooting modes, all of the film presets built into here. It is a force to be reckoned with, and you can accessorize this thing to have a built-in lens hood, which is something that I'm going to be reviewing on the channel here soon. Again, you can get these external finders, the shooting experience, the aesthetics, everything about this camera, man, is just amazing. And so when it comes to street photography, the Ricoh GR3 is, in my opinion, the best camera for this art form. And if you guys have a chance to ever pick one up, I would highly recommend it. That's gonna wrap it up for me in this episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. Definitely follow me over on Instagram if you want to see some more photos taken with the Ricoh GR3. It's the same as my YouTube channel name here, King Japes. But that's gonna wrap it up. I'll see you all in the next one. As always, Minolta Gang.